I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here tonight. It's always good to see you, and thank you again so much for your support. We just called our meeting to order and we had our Pledge of Allegiance. What we like to try to do after this is have an open forum. So if there's anyone here that would like to have a couple of minutes to address the city, would you please identify yourself so that we can acknowledge you and give you your opportunity? All you sit there, you can't see what I get to see. What we get to see is all you sitting there smiling like, don't call me, don't look at me. Really? Does anybody wish to? All right, then what I'm going to do, if nobody does, because we have a full meeting tonight, and it may take us a few minutes, normally I would just sit up here and hum and sing, and Chris would dance. That would be normal. But tonight, because we have a lot on our table, we're going to skip some of that, and we're going to move right on to the next piece of the agenda, okay? All right, so the next thing, item number 3 on the agenda is approval of the agenda. We have an amended agenda. I hope you've all seen it. It's just a very minor change. So can we get a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Dave, thank you. Jen, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much. Motion passes. We're on number 4, which is the consent agenda. Would you please?
Sure. Item A is the minutes from February 24, 2015. Recommendation to approve the minutes of the February 24, 2015 City Council meeting as presented. Letter B, approval of closing of Fund 25. Recommendation to approve the closing of Fund 25 Cottages TIF effective 12/31/14 and to transfer the remaining balance of $14,120.61 to Fund 33 Future Capital Improvements.
Would anybody like to make a motion on accepting the consent agenda or not accepting the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Fawn. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, please.
I need to abstain from the minutes because I was not at that meeting.
Okay.
So do we need to do a separate motion on that one?
First of all, does she have to abstain because she wasn't at the meeting? And second, if she does have to abstain, do we have to split them apart?
I think she probably should abstain, and I think we should also split them.
Okay? Then, Dave, I believe you made a motion to have A and B together. Would you be willing to split them into two separate motions, or two separate?
Sure.
Thank you. All right, let's take item 4A first. Jen, this is the one that you want to abstain from. So 4A, we have a motion. Fran, are you willing to second it again?
Yes.
Excellent. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And I'll abstain.
And Jan abstains. And Angie, you got her reason? Okay, perfect. 4B, 4B is the approval of closing the Fund 25. If I could, I'm going to put you on the spot. If I could, just for a second, as far as discussion on that goes, this is actually a good thing, and so I'd like to make sure that everybody understands what happened and why we're doing what we're doing. What we're doing is we're closing a fund that was part of a TIF district, and well, you explain it, please.
This is for the Cottages townhomes, kind of up on the northwest end of town. If we decertified it, which means the taxes that it's generating will start going back to the general fund instead of going into the project. And had an excess amount in there of $14,120, and we'll transfer that into another fund to be used for capital improvements.
She did a very nice job of explaining that. What she meant to say was that a TIF project worked. And because it worked, we have excess funds. So again, it's a good thing. All right. Any other discussion? Thank you. Any other discussion with regards to 4B? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Passes
No.
unanimously.
Did we have the same motioners? Do we have to do separate motions?
I did that.
I asked if Dave would be willing to.
Okay, for both of them?
A and B, and he said yes, and Fran said yes.
Okay, so
that-
to both of them.
Yes.
Okay, I thought they were just doing A. Okay.
All right, so now we're on item number 5, consideration of ordinance 337, if you would, please.
To approve ordinance 337, amending the city code of Cold Spring by amending residency requirements for the fire department. Furthermore, to amend the personnel policy of the fire department to reflect the change in residency requirements.
Can I call in Dan?
Yeah, you can call.
Dan? What? Can I ask you to do me a favor? What? Can you please sit up here for a minute? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our fire chief. This is Dan, and Dan is right now recuperating. He took a fall while on duty, and on behalf of the city, and now he's recuperating. He had some surgery, and I asked him before the meeting, and he said he's recovering just fine. It's just that it's taking forever, and that's pretty close to what he said. So, Dan, I have a question for you. The question is, what we're trying to do is we're going to change the city code. The proposal is that we change the city code. My understanding is that for years and years and years, the code had always been the same, and it was just a certain number of miles from the fire station. A person had to live within that area in order to be able to be on the fire rescue squad. Correct. And then about a year ago, you came to the council and requested that we change it from a couple of miles to a number of minutes. Now roughly a year later, you're back to make an additional request. I'm assuming that something happened between those two requests, or you would have just made this request in the first place. Is it okay? Can I ask? Was there an event that happened? Can I ask why we're doing it again?
One of our firefighters moved with just outside of the 8-minute time limit, and is a person that works in town, and I think it would benefit us to keep it, or to go out there them extra 2 minutes to keep him on the department. If we have a call out in that area, it'll help out in the northern part of our township area, so our fire district area.
Okay, so that's the reason why we're
Yep.
doing it? Okay, and did you have this discussion within the department itself?
I did a couple of
And the department has decided,
Well, they gave me the recommendation of doing, the majority of the people said, let's go this route and keep this firefighter on the department.
okay,
So my
Okay.
recommendation to you guys is to change it to the 10 minutes.
okay, thank you. Council, questions, comments?
Not ready.
Dave, questions, comments?
Nope. I'll make a motion to change it.
Okay, we have a motion, thank you, Dave. We have a
Second.
Jan seconds it, we have a motion and a second. Thank you, Jan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Those abstaining? Very good. Dan, thank you. And Council, thank you. All right, the next thing we're going to do is something we haven't done in a long, long time. What we're going to be doing next is we're going to be interviewing applicants for the position that the open chair down there sitting next to Dave. So what we're going to do is, and again, if you've been following along at all, you already understand this. What we've got, we put out a request for applications. We received 4 applications. We had city staff vet them and make sure that they were residents, make sure they were old enough, all of those kinds of things. City staff did that. City staff came back and said that yes, all 4 candidates were eligible, all were qualified to go through the interview process. So we agreed that we are going to hold an interview. So tonight what we're going to do is we're going to do the interview process. list. And what we normally would do is we would ask that only one candidate be in the room at a time, so that what we're hoping to do is keep the other candidates from not hearing their answers and not altering their positions based on what someone else has said. So what we are going to hopefully do is ask all the candidate, we'll ask one candidate to stay in, the other three candidates to perhaps go in the library. We're hoping that that's far enough away, so that you just don't overhear accidentally what the discussion is about. And then we'll ask the questions of the candidates, and one at a time. After that is done, the council will discuss it, and what we're hoping is that after that, we'll come to a consensus, and we'll be able to swear in our fifth council member yet this evening. So, who's first?
Mickey Shealy.
Mickey Shealy's first. So if everybody would pull out Mickey Shealy's packet. Mickey, if you would please be willing to sit here, and the rest of the other three of you that are here, if I could ask you please, and I'm sorry, but if you would please just step down to the library. Thank you. Thank you.
Mickey Cheeley.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mickey Cheeley.
Thank you.
Mickey Cheeley. I'm Mickey Cheeley.
Hello.
Okay. Dave? Jan? What I was wondering is if we could start with question number 1 on that end. So you'll ask question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, and then 5 and 6 you guys will take again?
Okay.
You all right with that? Dave? All right, excellent. Aaron, Mickey, oops. Mickey, thank you very much for being here. Dave, if you would please start us off.
Okay. Can you tell us why you are interested in becoming a member of the city council?
I'd love to. I have lived in Cold Spring for 11 years. I chose to start a business here 9 years ago. It's been quite successful. We've grown, we've expanded buildings, and I feel it's time for me to just give back. And this is a great opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question first? How are we going to number this? What is going to be our scoring?
Sorry, procedural question.
We have a 1 to 5.
5 is the best.
5
Is the best. Okay, that's what.
Okay, agreed? Agreed?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm next. Mickey, what issues for Cold Spring are most important to you, and what would your goals be to deal with those issues? So basically, what do you see on your plate if you get on the seat?
Well, I'd like to see things that we aren't currently doing, such as I've noticed a lot of the other cities are implementing compostable recycling. So that's something I'd like to start maybe in the schools and then into the community. You know, it's easiest to. But if I have little kids, and if you go and have lunch, it's sickening how much food they throw away. So that's something I would like to see. We can use that material for mulch, and other cities too use it as even fundraisers, and they hire certain people and they actually make money off of this. So that's one thing.
My turn. City council members are sometimes contacted by residents about concerns or complaints they have. How would you handle it if you were contacted about something the resident wants changed? For an example, an ordinance regulating how big of a garage they can build.
Well, I believe in the 9 to 9 rule. No calls before 9 in the morning, no calls after 9 at night. So having calls and people contact me, that usually doesn't bother me at all.
Mickey, the city council often has to make difficult decisions that impact the city. Are you more inclined to vote along with the majority of a group, or do you feel comfortable being the lone opposing vote?
I'm very self-willed and usually aren't influenced by others. If you ask anybody who knows me.
I guess my turn now. A large tax base is beneficial to the city. What are your ideas to attract more businesses and residents to Cold Spring?
How do we attract more businesses to Cold Spring?
Basically, yes. If you have any ideas.
How do we attract more businesses to Cold Spring? I think it would help to keep businesses we have to start with. You know, I've had a business for 9 years and I've seen so many come and go in my time, and you know, that's a little disheartening. There's lots of open spaces. I'm just not sure, you know, what are we doing to advertise to businesses? You know, I don't know what we're currently doing actually to bring businesses to town. Gosh, how do we get a new restaurant in this town? I would love that. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Okay, and I think this is the last question, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything more that you'd like to tell us, or are there questions that you have for us about this?
No.
That's it?
Okay.
That's it.
Excellent, thank you.
All right.
All right. If you would, please, you can take a chair any place out here. You don't have to go back into the library. There's no- Because at this point, we're assuming that you can't change your answers. If you would go get, who's next?
Who's next in your order there?
Jamie Knapp.
Jamie. Okay, if you would, please. Dave, Jan, Fran, how's it looking? Are we gonna be okay doing it the same way? Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Mr. Knapp, what we're going to do is we're going to ask a series of questions across the panel here, and if you just be kind enough to give us the answers.
Absolutely.
Dave, please.
No, it's my turn.
Fran.
Fran,
Oh, you're just going to do it that way?
Yep.
might as well, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, you'll know the same.
Otherwise, we gotta ask so many questions.
That was the idea. Okay, go ahead.
Can you tell us why you are interested in becoming a member of the city council?
Absolutely. I want to be part of the decision-making process that helps this community grow. My wife and family and I have been here for almost 15 years now and moved here and love this city and love everything about it. My kids are at an age now where they're just getting into high school, and I want to be part of, a process that helps this town grow and helps it build and helps that balance between community and business and residential expand further. And it's always been part of my experience to be part of a decision-making process, whether it be in work or through other organizations. But like at work, one of my big things is people come to me and ask me for direction. They come and ask me for help and assistance, and I think I can be a valuable member by having my experience behind me with what I do at work.
Thank you. What issues for Cold Spring are most important to you, and what would your goals be to help deal with those issues?
I think one of the most important issues is balancing commercial development with residential development. I think one of the things I really like that I've seen happen is the roundabout going up north of here. Working in Sartell, there used to be no roundabouts, and now I drive through 3 of them every day to and from work. And I can tell you the traffic flow is incredibly easy now. You get an occasional person who makes a left turn, but I haven't seen one of those in quite a while. But for the most part, things like issues like that. And my goal would be to figure out what other issues are there, what are things like that. I like the idea of getting this street right here redone, having driving up and down it. I know what kind of a headache it is to make a left turn or get on in and out of it. And other things like that. I also like the idea of growth with our commercial areas, the brewery, Golden Plump. Having worked for Golden Plump for a number of years previously, I know what kind of pains it is for a big company like that to be in a small town and some of the things you have to go through. Not that it's a hurdle, but there are some challenges because people want to keep that small town feel, but you need that kind of diversity in your town. And I think that's one of the areas I'd like to see grow is, let's balance the commercial with the residential.
Okay, city council members are sometimes contacted by residents about concerns or complaints they have. How would you handle it if you were contacted about something a resident wants changed? For example, an ordinance regulating how big of a garage they can build, something like that.
I think the important thing about that is to listen to their argument, understand exactly what they're trying to do, and then understand what the city code is, and understand where they're at. Neighborhoods change. I know, for example, in my neighborhood, somebody wanted to put a deck on this side of their house instead of this side. Well, they couldn't because the street was too close. Well, the street was close, but there's really, it wasn't really anything impeding. It was just they wanted to go this way instead of this way. And so it's learning things like that about what is the true issue, what are they really trying to do, and understanding that and going back to, again, the city code and saying, what does the city code say? What can and can't they do? Or what can we change to make it happen for them? But I think the most important thing is, one, listening to them and being available to listen to them.
Okay, next question. City council often has to make difficult decisions that impact the city. Are you more inclined to vote along with the majority of the group, or do you feel comfortable being a lone opposing vote?
That's a great question. I think every situation is unique. I am in a position as an analyst. I'm more prone to tell people the way it is, the way the facts tell it. A lot of what I do is driven by data and not so much power suggestion from a person, but it's understanding what the issue is, and sometimes you have to go against the grain, and that's just the way it is, unfortunately. But you also, again, have to go back and you have to vet everything out to understand the entire situation. To say that I steer one way or the other, I'm not one who regularly goes into the crowd. I'm the one who sits in the meeting and I ask the tough questions. I look at what there is and I ask the questions that generally don't appear.
A large tax base is beneficial to the city. What are your ideas to attract more businesses and residents to Cold Spring?
That's a great question, Fran. I think with anything, it's potentially giving tax breaks, but also giving them a deal on the land, or showing the promise of the vacation of the area of what a great vacation area this can be, and for residents to understand that to have growth and to have reduction in taxes, sometimes you have to have that give and take.
I get to ask the sixth question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Is there anything more you'd like to tell us, or are there any questions that you have for us?
I don't have any questions. I guess the only thing I'd like to tell you further is the one question on the application was about time commitment. And with my current position that I have the luxury of working at home or in my office in Sartell. And so the demand of what this position would bring balance with my work and my life, I don't think would complicate things a whole lot. And I think at this point in my life, with where my kids are at and where we're at, in the community is, I'm ready to be more of a member and more involved in the community, which is the reason I wanted to be on the council.
Excellent. Thank you. If I can ask you, please, to grab, well, why don't you grab that chair? And then, please, who? Are we ready for Andrea?
Okay.
Thank you. And then Dave, you're going to start with one.
All right.
Thank you.
Wait till she's here.
Yeah, don't say
Always got to be a
I know
smart
you're anxious,
Always
but
got to be a smart aleck in a bunch.
Well, he's just trying to keep the meeting, flowing.
Hello, Andrea.
Hi.
Do you want to let her know what's going on
Yes, I would love that.
before
I would love that. Thank you. We appreciate your making application. What we're going to do is we have 6 questions that we have pre-prepared, and we're going to take one at a time to ask you the question, and we would just like to hear your response.
Okay.
Thank you.
First question. Can you tell us why you are interested in becoming a member of the city council?
I want to be a member of city council because I'm a member here. I want to have a voice in how our community changes. Obviously, every resident has a little bit different opinion of what we want, but I also want to be involved on things that I might not even know about the city. So I can't be one that sits back and is upset when things happen or don't happen.
Second question is, what issues for Cold Spring are most important to you, and what would your goals be to help deal with those issues?
My two main things, I think it's really important right now to bring in and retain residents and do the same economically. So how we have properties that we can bring in, we want new businesses. We also want residents to use the businesses. And some of those things are to make neighborhoods that people want to move to. I mean, we have a lot of properties that are available that are tax forfeited and no one is utilizing those, and it's not bringing any revenue to the city. Those residents can also utilize new economic structures, especially on Highway 23 if we start bringing other businesses in, because on the highway we have a really good avenue to bring revenue, especially during the summer with tourists. So it's twofold. I mean, I want to see the economic growth, but the residential growth too.
City council members are sometimes contacted by residents about their concerns and, excuse me, and complaints they have. How would you handle it if they were contacted by someone or resident wants to change, for an example, an ordinance regulating how big a garage they can build?
With my position that I hold right now, oftentimes I'm contacted by citizens of different townships or even other state agencies. And so I'm always open to hearing a concern. If they haven't voiced the concern, we can't ever move forward with it. In light of that, I can't ever offer an opinion on, that'd be a great idea or this or that. I'm always open to hearing it and even offering it to the council, but also to be mindful of where I go with it. I mean, I want to be someone that people see me and say, hey, I have a question, or what about this? I want to be able to talk to people.
Number 4. The city council often has to make difficult decisions that impact the city. Are you more inclined to vote along with the majority of the group, or do you feel comfortable being the lone opposing vote?
I am absolutely fine being the lone opposing vote. I'm on a committee with the 2 state agencies, and there are times when I'm a lone opposing vote. But it's important to do that. Also, with being the lone opposing vote, at least it is recorded as such. You stood with what you believe to be right rather than going along with other opinions.
A large tax base is beneficial to the city. What are your ideas to attract more business and residents to Cold Spring?
I think that relates to one I kind of answered before, but again, making different areas of town that families want to move to. I think there's some areas in town where we have parks that could be better or that are even lacking in parks, but we want residents to come here. Highway 23, the vacant land, I mean, there is even an area for things like fast food restaurants, things that not only tourists can utilize, but us as citizens can utilize as well. So I'd like to see that area change. And again, with the roundabout coming in, is going to give us more room to change the streetscaping. Almost, St. Joe did it. They really increased revenue with small businesses, and that's something we can do here as well.
Okay, last question, sorry. I'm having a sneezing fit up here. Is there anything more that you'd like to tell us, or any questions you have for us?
I specifically don't have any questions. I really appreciate the opportunity to come here, answer the questions, and be a member of the city.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd just be willing to have a seat out here, we have one more to go. And thank you. Okay, so Fran, you'll take the first.
Can I explain?
Make it?
No, does it need explaining?
Thank you for coming. I appreciate you being willing to come in and answer some questions for us. What we have is we have a list of 6 questions, and what we'll do is one at a time, we'll ask you each of those 6 questions, and we'd like to hear your responses.
Very good. First of all, can I have 2 minutes? Just a little background on
Okay?
myself.
What we'll do, if you don't mind, is that'll lend itself very nicely to number 6.
Ah, sorry to jump the gun.
No, you did it well.
All right. Can you tell us why you are interested in becoming a council member?
Certainly. It's interesting times in Cold Spring. With the roundabout coming, there's room for development at the purchased property from the Cold Spring Granite Company. So there's a lot that I want to be involved in. I have 2 kids, and I want to see improvement, growth. You know, there's a lot of room for that stuff here, and I'd like to be involved in that aspect of the city.
Okay, sorry, I was writing notes. What issues for Cold Spring are most important to you, and what would your goals be to help deal with those issues?
To keep the traditions that we have here, those issues are important. You know, there's a long-standing tradition with the ball field and the trails. I like the trail development, and that stuff is, you know, the way of life. That's one reason I moved out here, is the way of life, and that stuff is important to me. So those are the things that I'd like to maintain. This is the biggest interview crowd I've ever had. I've been through a lot of interviews, but this one.
Turn this way, then it's kind of like you don't know.
But I still know you're there.
City council members are sometimes contacted by residents about concerns or complaints they have. How would you handle it if you were contacted about something a resident wants changed? For example, an ordinance regulating how big of a garage they can build.
That's one of the reasons I'm sitting up here, is you can't make change. You know, first of all, you gotta have them come to you, to this board. You know, and that's the only way change is. People can sit and, oh, I want to change this and change that, but they never step up to do it. That's why I'm here, so I can sit there to step up and be part of that change. I don't know if that answered your question, but
It would.
direct them to the council.
Mhm.
Come to the meeting. We have 3 minutes
Yep.
of every meeting to express concerns and issues.
Absolutely.
Okay, next question. The city council often has to make difficult decisions that impact the city. Are you more inclined to vote along with the majority or comfortable being the lone opposing vote?
You have to gain all the information you can to make an educated decision which is in the best interest of the community. You can't, if there's gonna be times I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me, but that's what it is. You have to make what's best for all based on all the information you gather. Educated decisions.
A large tax base is beneficial to the city. What are your ideas to attract more businesses and residents to Cold Spring?
I'm very in favor of that. And with tax base, for an example, if you were to put up say a hotel or something like that, that brings people in. You know, you got 23 here, you got the chain of lakes, and that's where that development of that property is so key, because it brings people in. You know, people come in to the lakes, and I don't know if that answered your question, Fran, but I'm a little nervous, so.
We'll go with
bear
it.
me here. Development, that's a very, very good piece of property there to develop, and that could bring a good tax base, whether it's a strip mall, a hotel, a restaurant, anything to bring people to our community.
You're the last one, kid.
This is the question you've been waiting for. Is there anything more you'd like to tell us, or are there any questions that you have for us?
No, 2 minutes. My name's Bill Thielen, for those of you that don't. No relation to Bob, spelt the same, no relation. I've been married 19 years. I have 2 boys.
I've been employed with the city of St. Cloud for 18 years as an equipment operator. I've lived in Cold Spring for 17 years. So my father was on the city council in Wake Park for 27 years. So I'm kind of familiar with how the city operates, you know, having discussions with him before he passed on things. So I feel I'd be a benefit. I have a lot to offer.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Do you want to explain this is only for 2 years?
Okay.
Yeah,
Can I
I
ask you
understand that. Yeah,
why don't you grab it? Why don't you grab a seat? And then what Fran just asked me to do is make sure that everybody understood that this appointed seat is only for 2 years. Okay. So all of those of you that were up here, just to make sure, absolutely certain, it's a 2-year seat. After which you can of course apply and run for re-election. But but the appointment is only for 2 years. Okay. All right. So. What would you like to do?
Have somebody add up all these and
Okay, so should we pass them all and give them to Chris?
Do we
And
need to,
and we'll discuss it we can discuss whatever we want to discuss while Chris is tabulating?
do we put our initials on it so we get the same ones back, or?
Do we want the same ones back, or do you want just to make sure that we get the numbers so that we can,
I'm just satisfied with the numbers.
okay, I'm going with numbers. Fine. Thank you. Thank you. Do you need this? Anybody have an abacus? For those of you that are young. All right. Well, first of all, because I can, I'm going to do this real quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you very much for being willing to put yourself into the position of even being considered, for coming out here and sitting at our table. And thank you. I mean, I know it sounds like you hear that a lot, but I'm serious. This is a big deal, and we really appreciate your willingness to do that. So again, thank you. Okay, council, when Chris is done with numbers, are we going to go strictly by the number? Do you want to? How do you want to go? How do you want to proceed? Want to talk about it?
Strictly by the numbers.
Strictly by the numbers? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to circle one there? Do you want to add something?
Now, Dave, don't get too spread out down there, because you know
I'm
that
gonna lose room
soon you're
here.
going to be having a
lose my
table
room.
made. You'll have a
You
table.
want to
made.
switch?
have to learn to share.
Well, Fran just brought up something that's very interesting. At the next meeting, we're going to do exactly what we did at the very first meeting. We'll talk again about, do you want to sit someplace different? Do you want to consider a different appointment? Because those kinds of things are going to have to be reconsidered.
Let's have a
So,
full set, yeah.
yep, because we'll have a full team.
Depends on who's sitting here.
Well,
No.
so again, so at the next meeting, we'll talk again about what order do you want to sit? Do you want to stay on the councils? Because everybody's been at least one, if not two, of whatever you agreed to whatever, like planning commission, EDA, whatever. You've been at least one or two, so you have a taste of that. And if it's something you don't want to do, then you can let us know. Otherwise, we just have to fill in that last person.
And here's one of them. Thank you. Is that what you're doing?
And again, while we're waiting, the next thing on the agenda, after we get done with our selection, we'll swear in the successful candidate, and that candidate for tonight will get the privilege of sitting next to Dave. I don't know if you know what kind of an honor that is, but you'll get to sit next to Dave. And then after that, we will have the presentation by the downtown committee. Downtown committee, I don't want to be presumptuous, but do you have some setup that you need to be doing in anticipation of your presentation? Because if you do, this might actually be a reasonable time for that. Oh, so there really isn't much.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know what you were going to be doing. If all you're going to do is pull that out and put on the screen, then it's, yes, we want you to pull that out.
We scaled back the song and dance number because we couldn't get the whole marching band in here, so we just left it to that instead of the whole routine with the dances and bands,
Okay.
flags. and-
That'd have been good.
It would have, yeah, it was just.
It would definitely have gotten, it's true, but it definitely would have gotten attention. Again, I repeat the request, does anybody have an abacus? Fran,
What?
the mic's yours.
No, I don't want that. How
Jan?
many times I have to tell you I don't want that?
Okay.
Is Tom going to be here for number 13?
Tom is not here, Tom is on break. I tried to get him to answer a couple of other questions as well, and I got the same answer every time I contacted him. Just like that, he says, he did in the office, said he's on break. So that's why I called him 2 or 3 times today. He was on break every time. Huh. So no, he will not.
Okay.
But I do have a canned paragraph he has told me, or asked that I read, so I will read that.
He's leaving that decision up to us, isn't he?
Line 13? The short answer is
He's leaving that up to us.
the short answer is there really isn't an answer to be had. But yeah, he's leaving, he wants us to do that, but there isn't anything we can do at this point.
Yeah, I don't know.
But what I will, again, if you read the council, the administrator's report, if depending upon what we do with 13, there is a 13A.
Candace D's, or they got a Candace D's, make sure they're legal, or
Wow, this was close. This was close.
Wow.
Really close.
Yeah.
Okay, who wants to read the results?
You.
Your
You
job.
got that
My
seat.
job.
Here's your job.
Again, it was extremely close. Should we just say who the winner is, or should we name it all out? Just say who the
Just
winner
say
is?
who the winner is, yeah.
Jamie, congratulations. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, next thing we're gonna do is, if you would, Jamie, next thing we're gonna do is we have a little thing we call swearing in, and Chris will take care of swearing you in, and then you get the privilege of going down there.
So I'll have you read it off, put your name there, and just hold your hand up while you're saying it.
Okay. I, Jamie Knapp, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, and to discharge faithfully the duties of the office of the City Council member in the city of Cold Spring, Minnesota, to the best of my judgment and ability, so help me God.
Congratulations, you're welcome.
Welcome.
Congratulations.
I'm going to give a thank you and a sign to everybody. I'm going to do one. I'm going to everybody.
That's your packet. You'll get one of those in 2 weeks.
Okay, the next thing we're going to do is, I'm going to again thank the three of you that, again, put yourself out there. Vicki, Bill, Andrea, thank you. I appreciate it very much. Again, this process doesn't work without your willingness to do this. So again, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. We just got done swearing in our council member, which is item number 7. So now item number 8, presentation by the Downtown Committee with regards to Red River Avenue. So please, if you would.
Give me about 15 seconds to get this on.
He's got the timer out.
All right, we'll get it started. Thank you for allowing us to present today. Thank you, council members. My name is Nathan Sauer. I'm chairman of the Downtown Redevelopment Committee. And what I can first say is our committee mission and vision statement that we started, and that was over a year ago now. Just to read it off. The mission of the Cold Spring Downtown Development Committee is to recommend plan, options, and design concepts with physical appearance and economic vitality of the downtown community during and after planned road construction starting in 2016, with focus on streetscape, landscape, and business that is consistent with the community objective to maintain one cohesive and historically significant downtown. This committee will gather information from all available sources with special attention paid to the affected businesses and property owners with focus on downtown economic success during and after construction phase and into the future. So really what that's saying is the Downtown Committee was created by business owners and residents of downtown Cold Spring. We were asked by the city to come up with ideas of what we wanted our downtown to look like after construction. And this presentation is strictly on Red River Avenue, and it's just a concept design, and I can go from there. This task was taken very seriously, and the plan was developed over the past 12 months by volunteers of the city of Cold Spring. We had numerous brainstorming sessions with many great ideas, and we just didn't know how to put them into action. So what we did was we hired an urban architect named Jeff Martin, and he's done numerous projects around Minnesota, including Sauk Rapids. So what Jeff did is help us put our ideas into a conceptual and professional plan. We did have his grand design right away, and we had many meetings to weed out things we didn't need, and also being cost and safety conscious while we were doing it. The first thing that Jeff put together was this map, and I guess I can sit down here so you guys can see. So what he did was show us focal points that we needed to put most of our attention to if we want to, have an attractive city. What would you see first, and why would you want to come into the city of Cold Spring? So he marked off in red the gateway entrances into our city of Cold Spring, which would be right off 23, where the gas stations would be, right downtown on the Main Street, Red River Avenue section, and then up by the brewery, County Road 2, County Road 50 section. So he said those would be your main focal points that you would want to focus more of your energy into. And eventually, when Main Street goes into effect in 2017, that would be another focal point, which would be right by the bridge there in green. So that would be a future project.
So we focus our efforts on along areas. And Brian, our city engineer, can go over some of the rest of the plans that Jeff had put together. He's very good at explaining it since he is an engineer and I'm not.
All right, thanks, Nate. I'm going to try standing over here. We have a packed house tonight, which is great. The downtown committee kind of brought me into this as well to help run through, to work with some of the ideas, to work through some of the things that that Jeff presented, as well as how those things that he presented for the streetscaping and for the city work with the road project, as well as looking at some of the costs. How do these things, what ultimately will these improvements cost? So I guess we'll maybe back up and we'll kind of start with where we started. Like Nate said, we brought Jeff Martin into the discussion, and what Jeff did was first the framework plan, looking at the overall city of Cold Spring, where emphasis would be placed. Beyond that, then he went block by block, looking at the businesses we had or the residences we had, and trying to fit in there what's going to work best for a streetscaping, what's going to work good for our sidewalks, trees, benches. Originally we had looked at some different roadway configurations. We've kind of, through the past couple meetings, we've moved beyond that. We've kind of made those decisions with the county as to what our roadway configurations are going to be. As a reminder, through the downtown area, we're looking at 2 driving lanes, a turn lane, either for one direction and then the other end of the block for the other direction, as well as parking. It was noted during our public meetings that parking was very, very important to the downtown business owners, so that's something we incorporated into the plan as well. For example, we'll go in front of the sidebar. Some of the things he points out, or what Jeff looked at when he did this process was looking at, all right, where would we want to put trees? Where do we best put trees to avoid blocking businesses, blocking view of businesses, but yet still providing this nice corridor that has the trees on it. He looked at things like for example, in front of a bar and restaurant, can you put outdoor seating? We have this little bit wider sidewalk than we have now. I think we're going to gain about 2 feet on our sidewalk through downtown. That just gives us some additional options for what we can do in front of the businesses, as well as when we get in front of the residential areas, how big of a boulevard can be provided, those sort of things. So Jeff went through basically block by block, looking at the city. And through this process, he was working with the downtown committee. They were talking through things. The committee was giving input to Jeff as well. So we went beyond that a little, and one of the things Jeff did that really, I think, helps highlight what the downtown committee was looking for is some of these perspectives. So for example, on the bottom here, we have looking north on Red River Avenue, we have the 2 gas stations. Highway 23 is down here. And so you have the existing view, and then looking at taking into account what he had on that drawing I just showed, those things, looking straight down, now putting them into a perspective and saying, what could that really look like? What could that really do for this corridor? So this one is a good example. We talked about those gateways at the either side of town, at the north and the south side. This is really one of those gateways at the south end that is designed to help bring people into the city, to welcome them into the city. So again, you can see the effect that the trees have. A lot of the granite elements we'll get to talking a little bit about later, but along parking areas, using some bollards, using some granite columns like you've seen in front of the Granite Community Bank in the Granite Landing development, tying those sort of things together. One of the other things I think Nate didn't necessarily hit on, but was very much one of the concerns of the downtown committee, was looking at keeping Granite Landing is a new development, and not just allowing downtown businesses to maybe go that direction, instead trying to take the new, that's part of that, the new streetscaping, if you've been down there, the bollards, the granite in the sidewalk, some of those elements, and bring them to downtown in order to keep businesses downtown, in order to kind of not create two separate downtowns, really to pull them together as one. And that doesn't necessarily mean having to pull identical and make everything the same, but bringing in some of those same elements into the new street project. Here's kind of the same thing. We're standing, this is the existing, the brewery is right here. So just again, some of the gateway elements, some of the things that we can do to really draw people in. So we have, the concepts that Jeff came up with. Jeff came up with really great concepts for us. He has a great vision for what he does. As part of that, the downtown committee had to say, all right, we love the idea of all this stuff, but is it all of it feasible? So that was one of the things that the committee, that they really kind of struggled with, and they had to work through, and a lot of meetings were dedicated to what's really important to us. What are the things we want to see? What are the things that aren't as important? And let's focus on the important things, and if we're going to spend money, let's have a big impact. So I guess one of the things we wanted to do tonight, and I'd helped the committee quite a bit put together, figure out some of the costs. Jeff gave us a lot of costs, and I helped compile some of these costs as well, is look at what those costs are, because there is definitely an aspect to that. So one of the things we looked at is no matter what we do on this project, there's going to be costs for the city. The county, when it comes to the roadway, the county is paying from the back of curb to the back of curb. So anything inside that roadway-wise is being covered. Outside of that is the city's responsibility. That's if we do streetscaping or if we do nothing. Because when we tear the road up, those things are going to go away as part of the project. There's no way to save the sidewalk. There's no way to save those sort of things. So we have to replace them. So at a minimum, that's a cost the city is going to incur. That's what we have here in the no improvements column. No improvements really means putting things back the way they are. So that involves sidewalk, grass and topsoil, pedestrian curb ramps like you see at all the corners to meet the ADA requirements. Street lights. We have some street lights. One of the things we talked about at the committee level is we want to make the street lights a little nicer no matter what. It was past councils had, when we dealt with the Granite Landing development, looked at the street lights and said, made a decision and said, this is really what we want for the city, for the downtown in the future. So trying to match the streetlights that are in Granite Landing. Trees. No matter what we do, there's going to be some trees because there's trees there currently, boulevard trees. If we take them out, we have to put them back. So there's a cost there no matter what. So we came up with about $400,000. Now this would be from Highway 23 to the 50 and 2 intersection. So that's really the put it back as it is cost. So then we stepped back and said, okay, let's look at what Jeff proposed. What's important, what isn't, how do we start putting those costs in? So with his plan, we really have a lot of the same things. We have sidewalk, we have grass and topsoil, we have curb ramps, we have street lights. Street lights here, we went a little more, or had got a few extra street lights. I think on the no improvement plan, we had looked at about 5 street lights per block. On the improvement with the downtown committee, we were looking at about 7 per block. What that lets you do is if you put more street lights in, they're able to be a little dimmer because you have more of them. They're also able to be a little bit lower, so they aren't so tall. It affords you some different things with the design. So, and just to keep in mind, I think Jeff had proposed around 10 streetlights per block. So definitely this is one of the areas where even in the downtown committee streetscape plan, they scaled it back and said, all right, 10 seems like an awful lot. Let's be reasonable about it and look at it and scale this back. Street trees, another one that I think we almost, I don't remember the exact number that Jeff had in, but we cut it significantly. He had a lot of trees per block.
Cut it by over half.
Yeah, over half. We cut out the number of trees. Just because that is a cost. There's concern about where the trees go, how you place them by businesses, those sort of things. So we looked at it, stepped back and said, you know what, let's pare that back to about 7 per block on average. Now, exactly where they go is going to have to be determined in design. We'd initially said, well, let's put a tree opposite every streetlight. It's not always going to be that easy. You have driveways, you have businesses, but on average about the 7 per block. So those were the things that are really kind of the same. So just in that area, you add about 100,000. And a lot of that comes from the streetlights. Streetlights are fairly expensive. They're definitely an investment. One of the things that we looked at initially, Paul Hessian was in on this discussion as well, and we looked at quite in depth, and he had talked to lighting people, was kind of a standard streetlight or going to an LED. He talked with the people that design the streetlights, that sell them, and those others that maintain them, and the price of the LEDs in the last 5 years have come down significantly. It's something we had looked at in Granite Landing, but at that time was too cost prohibitive. In that 5 years, the cost has come down a ways. They're a lot cheaper to run. And he talked with folks, and they've never really had any issues with the LED streetlights themselves, so they have a longer lifespan compared to the other bulbs. So it's also something that there's less maintenance on behalf of the city. They don't have to go out and change bulbs as often. One of the things as well we had talked about is that in all likelihood, the city will probably own these streetlights, similar to the ones in Granite Landing. They can be purchased through Xcel Energy, where they maintain them. You have a lot less options to choose from, and you also, so you're stuck with what they have, and then they do not offer LED. There are also more restrictions when it comes to hanging Christmas lights, those sort of things, on the street lights themselves. And typically they're a little more expensive in the beginning. So at this point in the process, we had looked at the city actually owning the lights. So we go down the list then, and these are now all things that are really not included in the base if we do nothing. They're additional things. Perennials. Looking at putting plantings in between, bushes, plantings, perennials, something in between the trees to give you something else in these boulevards. So planting soil for some of the trees when we get into the downtown, the core downtown blocks, really First Street South to First Street North. You're looking at the entire boulevard from behind the curb to essentially the right-of-way, or in most cases the right-of-ways at the buildings, is going to be all concrete. Just because to have a small boulevard in there really isn't going to work. We're also required through the ADA to have certain access routes. We call them a PAR, a pedestrian access route. It's at least 4 feet. That has to be at a certain cross slope to meet the ADA requirements. So throughout this corridor, through downtown especially, it's difficult. We're going to have to work with where the steps and the entrance is located to businesses, where are, the curb, where's the curb at. All of these things have to work together. By having that wide concrete boulevard, it gives us some more room to work with. As well as the wider the boulevard, it gives us more places to play with the grade and make things actually work out. Not have a really flat area for the ADA and then a really steep area to the curb. So trying to work through those things. So it also doesn't lend itself really well to a grass boulevard in these areas, especially it's the narrower the grass boulevard, the tougher it is to maintain and keep living. But because of that, if we're going to put trees in here, you have to figure out a way to keep the tree living. One of the things that you've seen, all of you have seen, are tree grates, the large metal grates that go around trees. Early on, one of the things that Jeff Martin talked about is how bad those are for trees, how expensive they are. They really aren't the best solution. If you look at in Granite Landing, some of the around the trees, they have granite pavers that are laid in there, and they're loose. And there's gravel in between the pavers. They look like you could walk on them, and you could walk on them, but they're really not a walking surface. But what it does is it allows the water to get in between the cracks, just like a tree grate would, and get water to the tree, but it also looks a lot nicer. And he said really for the cost of a tree grate, you can almost put this nice looking granite in your sidewalk around the trees. So some of the, when we have trees in these areas, some of the other things we have to think about. Really, it kind of brings us into a lot of the granite items. I know the committee felt very strongly because of the history of granite in Cold Spring, that we wanted to incorporate these items, granite items, into the streetscape. It's also something that Jeff had used a lot of as well. Borrowing from the things in Granite Landing and bringing some of those elements into the downtown. We have granite pavers. What we had there is it's essentially a granite banding. If you're walking down the sidewalk, every so often there would be a strip of granite running across. Maybe a couple of 100 feet down, there's another strip. So some of those things just to introduce a little bit of granite into what we're doing. We had looked at a colored concrete as well, kind of a gray colored concrete that would mimic a granite. But really by the time you start dealing with that, trying to get colors to match, those sort of things, the granite was a better deal. And we spaced them. That was another thing that Jeff had a lot more of, and the committee really backed off on how much of that we were using, just to try and be fiscally conservative with it, as well as give it some emphasis but don't overuse it. We have some split cobble, split flagstone. Those are really kind of the same thing, just a little different around. Those are mostly around the trees. Those would be in the core downtown area, in place of a tree grate. Bollards. You've probably seen bollards in the parking lot at Teals or the parking lot at Granite Community Bank. They stand about this tall, maybe 2 or 3 foot by a foot wide. Really just something to delineate between the parking lot area and maybe the sidewalk area. We looked at these mostly on the south end of the project, near the gas stations and the strip mall along the parking lot there, as well as on the north end by the brewery parking lot, and then a few along the brewery itself, just to kind of mimic that on the other side. So really trying to take, the committee wanted to take a lot of these items and really not necessarily put them throughout the whole corridor, but place some emphasis in certain areas. So one of the emphasis with the bollards would be at either end. Granite columns, similar to what you see in the Granite Landing development, a large granite column in the air, something at the gateways. So really the areas we had looked at that again was at the south end, possibly one by the gas station, depending on how it's a pretty tight corner. Otherwise, they had said they'd like to have one on either side of the trail, at the Ricori Trail, and then also 2 on the north end. Basically as a gateway, something to focus you in to come into downtown. And the design on those wouldn't necessarily be the same. It's just trying to pick on the same theme. Benches, we had they wanted benches throughout the project. So the type of benches, again, would be similar to Granite Landing, more of a rustic looking bench, not necessarily a metal park bench, but actually a chunk of granite that would be your bench. Something that would give some character to the downtown. Beyond that, really just some other minor items that would go with it: trash receptacles, bike racks, GFI, so outlets near some of the trees for the possibility of Christmas lights on the trees. And then one of the things the committee had also talked about was irrigation. They felt that if the city is going to make this kind of investment into trees and streetscaping and certain things, there should be, in those areas where it's really critical, there should be irrigation as well. Because if we're willing to put the money into making this downtown look nice, we need to be able to maintain it and keep it looking nice. So they felt irrigation to some extent was very important as well. So those items total to about $350,000. You can see, and I think you have this information in your packet as well. You know, the do nothing option really looking at about $406,000. The option that the downtown committee came up with about $868,000. Looking beyond that, one of the things that the committee looked at was power lines. If you've looked down the Red River Avenue corridor, you'll notice that there's a lot of power lines through there in select areas. One of the things that they wanted to do was basically clean up the visual corridor by burying some of those power lines. It sounds like a simple task, but burying power lines is not cheap. We worked through several iterations with Xcel Energy. For example, there's a large, more of a distribution line that comes from First or Second Street, runs north along past the brewery on the east side of the road, goes up to the intersection and out of town. We said, well, it'd be great if we could get rid of this big power line. The problem is it was fairly cost prohibitive. I think that alone was probably $200,000 to $250,000 worth of what the initial estimate they gave us was. So it was almost 40% of what they had initially told us. Because to bury a power line, one of the things you have to do, if you bury a main feeder line, the power company makes you bury a second one a block away, or have a second one in the air a block away. Basically, you need to have a backup. The reliability of underground power lines is much lower than the overhead lines. The overhead lines, if a tree hits them, they can come out, they can see the problem, they can fix it right away. Underground lines, moisture becomes an issue, rodents become an issue. If there's a break in the middle of winter, number one, they have to try and find it. Number two, you have to dig in the frozen ground. So in the mind of the power company, the buried lines are a lot more difficult to maintain as well. So they prefer to, especially on these bigger lines, see the overhead. So that's where if we bury the big lines, they make you put a second one a block away. So again, the committee took this and backed up a step and said, okay, what's really important to us? These big lines along the edge you don't really see, but instead you see all these other lines that cross as you go down the road. So one of the things that we had Xcel look at in the second time around was getting rid of some of the crossings to the houses and burying those. It's a lot cheaper than burying a big line. Also cleaning up a couple of select areas, one area being down the block just north of basically Highway 23 to the trail. Cleaning up some of the overhead lines there, especially because that's your first impression of the city as you drive through on Highway 23. One of the other blocks we looked at was Main Street to First Street North. So in front of the State Bank, in front of the side, in front of Subway. Looking at, there's basically a mess of power lines up there, trying to bury some of those. So the estimate, after we had pared this down a little and said, okay, the initial estimate's too much. The estimate that Xcel came back with was $275,000 for that work, to clean up those select areas, getting rid of house crossings, cleaning up by SA and Holiday, cleaning up by Sidebar, Subway, that block. This is really just a ballpark estimate, so that it is rough. It could be close to that, it could be lower, it could be a little more. They do it pretty quick. If it's something that the city is really interested in doing, you go to Xcel and you say, all right, give us a better estimate on this. But that also requires a deposit from the city for them to do that, because they do have to spend quite a bit of time engineering this, and they don't want us to come back and say, well, now that we know the actual cost, it's too much. So we have to put a deposit down if this is the direction that we would go, but then that is applied towards the overall final cost. So it's just a way for them to say, are you actually serious about this? So that factored in as well. You come up with 1.14 compared to the 406. So that's really kind of where we came at from the costs. These are rough costs. You've probably heard me make this disclaimer before. You know, these are not any guarantee of what the final cost would be. This was our best estimate that we could get on these items. One of the things that, and Dan, maybe you want to talk a little about the granite?
Yeah, one of the things about the granite that we thought was so important is that, you know, this town is known for 3 things. 1 is beer, 2 is baseball, and 3 is granite. So we felt granite was an integral part of this whole downtown development improvement project. Granite is a large part of that, as you can see. It's $250,000. It's 50-some% of the cost and the extra expenses. We are hearing from the granite company that this is a retail price. This is not a cost reduction or a cost reduced price. So we use retail numbers. The granite company is saying we will make it worth your effort to putting granite in, that we will considerably lower the cost of that. We did not go back to them and try to pin them back with numbers, but as we go forward, that certainly will be the idea, to go back to the granite company and get specific reduction numbers in the granite. But I think the committee felt that downtown development needs to go forward with granite and not with colored stone.
So that's just something, you know, another aspect that we've been working with the granite company pretty close on this, and they've had also a lot of input on some of these things, and even to the point where they've been looking at, well, I wonder if we have some pieces in our scrap pile that might work for this, you know, those sort of things. So they are, from everything I've seen, very committed to helping the city put granite into this if that's the direction we go.
Brian, can I just ask a question
Yeah.
about power lines?
Yes.
You know, we're talking about burying some of the power lines, and Richmond did a project on Main Street to move their power lines, but they were able to move theirs to alleys, but we don't have that ability because we don't have the street structure.
Correct. You make a very good point. We don't have alleys. If we could go back to the late 1800s and convince the surveyor to put alleys in, we'd be a lot better off. So we looked at the cost, and then I added, I don't think it was in your packet, but one of the things I laid on the desk, and Dan and Dave have seen it because I had sent it to the Planning Commission. One of the things at the last Planning Commission meeting when the downtown committee presented, the question was raised, what are other cities that have done this? What were their experiences with this? So the Planning Commission had asked me to do a little research. So one of the cities, I talked to City of Sauk Rapids. They've recently done streetscaping. They recently, I think about 8 years ago, went through a complete downtown rehab. Basically redid most of their downtown as part of the new Sauk Rapids Bridge. As part of that, they did some streetscaping. They did some other downtown improvements. Just so happens that they also happened to use Jeff Martin, the same person who Cold Spring used to do our downtown plan. So I had a real nice conversation with their administrator, just talking through some of the things that they had experienced. You know, they are similar to Cold Spring in a way, you know, they're a little bigger city, but they're also very similar in that they have to compete to keep people in town to spend their business dollars in town and not go to St. Cloud, and that's really really something we face as well. We're probably a little better off because we're further away. It's a bigger, longer trip. They're right across the river, so they had to work pretty hard to try and keep businesses in town, keep restaurants in town, keep their residents in the city, and even draw others in. You know, just I figured I had a couple of high points here. You know, really, and I had spoke with Ross Olson, who's their administrator. Ross said, you know, really before this project that they had done, their downtown was in decline. They had a lot of vacant businesses. You know, he says now it's been an almost, it's a 180-degree turnaround. He says the event, they still get empty storefronts like any city, but he says they fill up almost instantly. He said right now they have basically no vacancies within the city in their downtown area. It's a high demand place for businesses to be. He said really, it brought an identity back to their city. One of the neat things he mentioned on the side was that, you'll see if you drive through Sauk Rapids, they used a lot of granite as well. And people would ask, well, why do we have this pink granite in our medians? Why pink? And he said, well, Jeff did his homework. Jeff Martin looked, and there used to be a lot of granite industry in Sauk Rapids, and he figured out what color the granite was that came out of there and matched that and put it back in. So he wanted to match that identity. He wanted to bring that identity back to their town. He said initially there were a number of people that were opposed, didn't want to do the improvements. A lot of those people, he said, now have, after having seen it, are much more in agreement with it. They realize it's been a good thing for their city. Maintenance, he hit very hard on maintenance. It's one of the things that he said you have to realize maintenance will make or break ultimately how the project turns out. And I spoke with Jeff Martin a little as well to get some of his sentiments of projects he's done around the state, and he hit on one in particular where they I think in Moorhead, where they did a amazing streetscaping job, but the maintenance has been lacking. And he said you can tell that the maintenance will make or break it, and there is some maintenance with trees and with if there's plantings, those sort of things, keeping things up, keeping them looking nice. As well as, a lot of decisions that Ross said they made were driven by maintenance, trying to minimize that maintenance. One of the things our downtown committee had looked at previously was looking at some bump outs at the corners, extra pedestrian area, out into the street a little. Through the public process, that was noted that really wasn't a priority, and throughout the process as well, it had been really noted by Public Works that these are going to be very difficult to work with. They're going to be very difficult to plow around. So decisions like that as well, taking into account the maintenance on it. He said they've been very happy with the use of granite. I have a couple pictures of theirs coming up. You'll see they used granite extensively as well. Strategic placement of all the items. One of the things being trees. He said really, the interesting thing to him was that they actually put the trees directly in front of the businesses. And it seems that's counterintuitive. But if you think about when you're driving past a business, you don't look at the business at a 90-degree angle as you go past it. You look at it at about a 45. And he talked about these view sheds of, as you're approaching a business, keeping that view open as you approach, not necessarily where it's right to your, at a 90-degree angle from you, but keeping these view angles open from both directions. So actually they have a lot of trees directly in front of businesses. He says there is a little growing pain with that. Initially they're smaller. They're currently at about year 7, year 8. They're at the point where the trees are a little awkward, covering a few things, but in a couple of years they'll be taller and they'll be a lot better. But again, he said protecting that view for motorists so they can still see your signs, still see your businesses. They used, they actually had scaled back the lighting. They had looked, I don't think they had looked at LEDs, but they are looking now to switch all of theirs to LEDs. So it's, again, we're hitting that market right. One of the things he touched on as well is that they took, just like we did, they took Jeff's grand plan and backed it down a little. They put in less trees than Jeff had proposed. They put in less light poles than Jeff had proposed, just because they had to keep economics in mind as well. So kind of and even, this is after having, I only talked to him last week, but it's basically we've been doing the same things they've been doing along the way. So really, he summarized it. It's been an amazing. He said he can't speak highly enough about what the work that they had done downtown and what it's done for how people feel about the city, getting people into the city, as well as getting new businesses, retaining businesses. So if there's any questions on the conversation I had with him, otherwise I can kind of go through. I stole some images from Google today. I went on to the Google Street View where you can kind of drive down the road. Give you a little idea, just some random pictures from theirs, you know, and I'm sure a lot of you have been through Sauk Rapids before. But as I drive through it probably once a month, but don't necessarily remember it. So a couple of just some key pictures showing you kind of what they had done. One of the things you'll see here, look at around the trees, are kind of some granite pavers. It's kind of what I had talked about before, so you can visualize a little. Instead of a tree grate, you have these pieces of granite around the trees. Looking at some of the sidewalks, how they incorporated the trees and the benches, some of the plantings, some of the some of the same ideas Jeff had. Here's a view. We're actually looking east. The bridge is to your right. So you're on Benton Drive here right now. Just some of the plantings in the median. Stuff around the tree, you know, trees throughout. And then this is on the bridge. This would be looking towards Sauk Rapids. Just some of the gateway elements they did, you know, kind of similar to the ideas Jeff had for Cold Spring, is at the entrances to town putting these gateways in. And it's a little blurry picture, I apologize, but this one is actually from Cold Spring. This is looking at these are the columns at the bank. These are some of the bollards that were put in. In this area, we have more granite in the sidewalk. You know, we go with a lot. The downtown committee had proposed a lot less downtown, but you can. I wish I had a better picture, but there's some banding in here going across the sidewalk. So, a lot of those same elements that have started to be incorporated into Cold Spring. Here's a couple of pictures as well, just showing, you know, adjacent to a business, some of the things along the trees, some of the granite treatments adjacent to the businesses, benches. And then Ross had sent me some information. They do a lot of presentations on their streetscape just because it's won multiple awards, you know, industry awards for the work that was done. So just one of the things that I pulled out of some of the information he had that I thought was kind of pertinent to what the downtown committee was doing is this is intended to reduce the perceived scale of the street, calm traffic, improve pedestrian crossings, as well as signal to motorists that they are entering a special downtown district. And that's really kind of sums up a lot of what Jeff had done with the Cold Spring plan as well, is let's highlight this area, let's highlight the street, let's highlight the city. So just figured in, and from a completely different city, but just kind of summed up nicely, I think, what the downtown committee is trying to achieve.
Is that information available on their website?
I don't know if it is, but I would be able to get it to you. He had several PowerPoints, and a lot of it went into, they did a lot of work for the business retention. They also had a different situation, a little different than ours, in that when the bridge came in, it was going to took out about 25% of the buildings in their downtown area. So they had a lot more challenges in trying to retain businesses as well. Nate?
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for going over all that. I guess we just want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to form the committee and give you the plan that we wanted to give. And we've taken all the ideas and designs from business owners, residents, and put them into a conceptual plan that hopefully can positively affect our community for 60 years, because we don't have another chance to do it in our lifetime. We're investing in our future. It's long-term thinking, and we need to look at it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Could somebody turn the light on, please? Thank you. So, downtown committee, what is it that you're asking the council to do tonight? Just hear it and give it some airtime, because we don't actually have to make a decision on it until the next council meeting, correct?
Correct. What we were told to do is present our plan to the planning commission. The planning commission had passed it with a couple things, and the next thing was just to present it to you as a plan, and just you sit on it until further notice. That's what we were told.
Okay, thank you. Please.
The city council has a number of things that they're going to have to decide. One of them is what the county's going to do with that overlay of that street. Number two is what the utilities and the improvements are going to be. Number three is that roundabout. And number four is your streetscape. So what we're trying to do tonight is deal with the streetscape. It's a conceptual plan only. It only deals with Red River. It does not deal with Main Street. So the conceptual plan has two parts to it. The first part is what you saw tonight. What is the concept idea? What is it going to look like? How is it going to feel? The second part of this is what is the cost and who is going to pay for that? That's the part that is not in your conceptual plan. And that is going to have to be determined by the city council, I'm sorry. And that's going to have to be determined by looking at your assessment policies, looking at grants and other improvements that you can do, look at other ways to finance projects. And Chris and I have already had conversations with Rusty Feifig of Northland Securities, talking about possibilities. So that process has started, but there really is no definite thought pattern as to how you're going to finance the project. Again, that's going to have to be something that the council decides. We are a conceptual body. We came up with designs, and what we're trying to do is a couple things. One of them, and I think you've seen it in the paper, is a beautification. Okay, that's one part, but that's a minor part of what the downtown committee is trying to do. It's trying to develop its tax base. It's trying to develop more business in our community. It's trying to develop more opportunities for its citizens to have good experiences in Cold Spring without having to go to St. Cloud and other areas to do their shopping or their purchasing. So the core, I think, of this downtown development committee is developing the business of Cold Spring, so that Cold Spring is a good place to do business in, and it's also a good place to live. And those two things have to come together in this project.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And again, I do have some comments to go along with that, but first, before I do that, Jamie, do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
No,
You know,
nothing.
you're kind of new.
Throw them under the bus, why not?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to get thrown sooner or later.
No.
Dave,
No, I have no comment.
Jen?
No, we had gone through this at the planning
Yeah.
commission, so I got all my questions answered.
We've gone through
Okay.
it. a few
The
times.
Well,
presentation,
then if I
yep.
can, at the, what you heard at the planning commission versus what you heard tonight, was there anything that struck you that you think that we should hear with regards to what you heard?
No, we've been hearing this throughout kind of the development of the plan, from the initial plan down to the scaled down versions. I mean, so we've been hearing it throughout the way and to come up with this final concept. And the planning commission has been very supportive of the assistance by the downtown committee because they've done a fabulous job working on this.
I've gone to a few of those downtown committee meetings also, and yeah, they've scaled a lot down. They did I think they did a really good job of what they were supposed to be doing, so.
Thank you. Fran?
Well, if it makes sense and it's fair to everybody, I'm in favor of it. But it would have to prove to me or show me that it is fair to everybody. My concern also is this is the top part of the street. And again, I don't know what the bottom, what from the top to 10 feet below is going to cost us either. So that's my concern, because my concern is infrastructure, and it's always been infrastructure. So, and that's going to rely on that too. What's going to cost for, what's our cost for a roundabout, and infrastructure is my concern. And if we can do some other things with the infrastructure to help pay for that, because we do other street projects that have infrastructure and we find monies for that. So, but if everything makes sense, I'm also in favor of doing something with the city as to, like somebody said, we only have so many years, and I'm for doing some other kind of looking on the city, but not to the point where, you know, that it's going to be a burden to the residents or to the business people, because I'm a businessman. I've been in business here in Cold Spring for 26 years. I've had tax levies put against my business, a few things, and the last one was pretty tough on me too. So, and I know the burdens of that. So, but I'll keep that all in mind, and I'll make a judgment that'll be fair to everybody.
My comment on this is, those of you that know me know one of the things that I'm not very good at is the artsy stuff. I'm pretty good with numbers, but not with the artsy stuff. So for that type of thing, I have to rely on people like Jeff, like others, and we will. But when it comes to the numbers, one of the things that we've been working on quite a bit, and I have to give Dan a lot of credit, because Dan has been going to a lot of meetings with different organizations, trying to find different grants that we might be eligible for. Basically finding all kinds of different sources so that we can figure out different sources to pay for it other than real estate taxes. We've gone as far as trying to consider, is it possible to get a half-cent sales tax like St. Cloud has, Sartell has? Is it possible to do something like that? And basically what we have been told is if you have 5 to 7 years, that's a possibility. I'm sorry, we don't have 5 to 7 years. This project will be built next summer. So again, is it a possibility? We've been exploring a number of things. If you remember a long time ago, Paul Hetland was talking about an Adopt the Pole project, where maybe we can find ways of doing things like that, which would cover the cost of, and again, it might sound minor, but the light poles are $360,000. If we could pull $360,000 off of the project, the price of the project, that would be substantial. So we were talking about that. You also have heard that we have an assessment policy, and law says we have to follow our own policy. So what we've been trying to do is figure out how closely, how much can we vary, how can we differ, and the unfortunate thing is the last week or so, as we've been coming up with these questions, our city attorney is on vacation. So when he returns, we will get some answers. But for where we are right now, the city assessment policy is what it is. But what we're trying to find out, and the question we've been asking is, okay, as Fran was talking, infrastructure. If we just consider this to be a regular road reconstruction, can we use our regular policy for that? But then all of these streetscape, thank you. All these streetscapes, can we do something different with regards to that? Can it be assessed in a different format? And the answer to that question is, Tom's on vacation. When he gets back, we'll start getting some answers. But as we are sitting here right now, we really don't know. But we've asked the right questions. We believe we've asked the right questions, and we will continue to ask the questions. We will try to do all we can to have as good of a project, as nice of a project, and we'll do it in a fashion where we can afford to actually pay for the project. Okay? Again, please, just trust us on this. We're still asking questions. We don't have answers. We're not holding anything back. We just don't have them. But we will get them, and as we get them, we will share them. Okay? But as far as tonight, as far as this goes, again, I want to thank you, Brian, Nate, excuse me, and Dan. Thank you guys for putting this all together. I think it was very informative. I hope that everybody saw it, has a better idea of the area, the idea, the concept of where we're going. Again, we haven't made any decisions yet. We will be making a decision shortly. Do we know for sure, did the county say we had to by the end of March or the end of April? Or because it's streetscape, we have another year? Does anybody remember? Brian.
Mr. Mayor, we're trying to get these things decided sooner than later because we do ultimately, what the city decides on the streetscaping will really get rolled into the feasibility report for the project. Currently, we're working on finding out some more information about our utilities. They've been televising the sewer, so that's one of the things as well that gets rolled into the feasibility report. So we need to keep the process moving because ultimately it has to be included in there. It has to be part of the preliminary assessment hearing or the improvement hearing. And those things have to happen before we can really go ahead with final design. Now, the county is going ahead on a lot of things they've, based on the last meeting, they've gotten their approvals when they're okay from the city council to do certain things with the road, so they're moving. A lot of these things now really affect the city and the time that we have to prepare our design in advance of the project. So initially, we had talked about the next meeting at the end of March. Hopefully, maybe the city council would be able to make a decision at that point.
Okay, and my only concern, and again, I appreciate that, and that's a great thing, but my only concern about that is in order for us to make these decisions, we have to be able to get information back. So how do we coordinate it? Will you be doing it? Will you be doing it? Who's going to coordinate so that we have enough information and that the council gets the information before the meeting so we have a chance to start digesting it? Again, this sounds bad, but I'm going to say it anyway. I refuse to let the council make a decision if you're going to give us the information that night and say, now make a decision. I'm not going to let us do that. So we need to get the information in advance. So that's 2 weeks from now. Is that going to be enough time for you to get the information together and for you to get information together and for Tom? Or should we tentatively schedule it for next week or 2 weeks, knowing that if that doesn't work, that we're going to pick it up on the first meeting in April? Jan?
My thought is at the next meeting, we should have it on the agenda to review and spend the time on the finance side of it at the next meeting. So at this time we focus on the design, next time let's focus on the money side.
And then make the decision in
And if we're
April?
comfortable, we can make the decision, but if not, then we have that meeting after where we've got both sets of information. Because I'm with you, I need to have the information. I don't want to make any hasty
Yeah, this is too big to
decisions.
rush. You okay with that?
Yep, show me the money.
You okay with that?
I am.
Jamie? Okay, then can we ask you guys, by the next meeting, come back with with numbers so we can have the same kind of discussion. By the way, if you're not busy, 2 weeks from tonight, we have another meeting. This time we'll be talking numbers. Some of you don't think that's exciting. It is. Okay? So if you guys will have the numbers for us, next time we'll talk numbers, and then, like Jan said, if we're comfortable, we can move forward. Otherwise, we'll put that decision off until the first meeting of April. Right?
Right, the design is one phase, but we have to do the next piece of it as well.
Perfect. Perfect. Right? All right, excellent. Again, thank you very much for your help. Thank you all very much for being here, for paying attention to the presentation.
Can I ask Brian one other question?
Brian, one more question.
Yes. Just a question for you. Do you have a date in mind when you want to be working on this feasibility study?
We're gonna be working on it as soon as end of next week, we're gonna get information
With
back
the
on the sewer.
televising and utilities?
We're gonna
Okay.
really start working on it then. I think we'll be fine, looking at the first meeting in April.
Okay.
We really don't wanna push it back a whole lot farther, just because it is, it takes time. We have to advertise for the improvement hearing, we have to follow the 429 process.
Right, and even if we have, at that meeting, if we say yes, we're gonna go forward with this or a revised plan, whatever it be, we still are gonna continue to work on funding sources and everything thereafter, but, okay.
And if the city goes ahead with the design, it's still something this is very conceptual at this point, and a lot of the details still have to be worked out in it. But that's really what the design process is for.
Okay. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. All right, let's move forward then. If you don't mind, let's move on to item number 9 on the agenda. Fire Relief Association members and KDB will be present to discuss the audit reporting requirements.
Yeah,
I have lots, oh yeah.
I don't know if you can all fit together over there somehow, or?
Thank you very much.
We should probably open that door.
Yeah.
The reason they closed it is because of all
Because of
the
noise.
chatter back there.
But do you think that's, I don't think we're supposed to close it.
I think you better open it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. What can we do for you tonight? What can we do for each other?
We're just here on behalf of the Cold Spring Fire Department Relief Association. Nancy Schultzberg, John Dubier, Michael Lang, and Dwayne Krieger. We're here to discuss the new GSAB, or the General Accounting Standards Board rules that have changed for relief associations. There's some new standards, I guess standard 67, 68 that's come out. I'll let Nancy speak to that a little bit, and then we can address the position on that.
So what we have is 2 new accounting standards. It's always fun when GASB is out there making new standards. But GASB 67, referred to, is a new pension standard. So there's a change in the way pensions need to be measured, and then also where the liability or asset will be recognized. So for fiscal year ending 12/31/2014, this is effective for the Fire Relief Association. And then GASB 68 is the pair to 67 that will be for cities, that will be in effect for next calendar year, so 12/31/2015. So the measurement would happen at the pension this year and would be implemented on the city's financial statements next year. And you've probably heard some about this because it relates to PERA also. So any net pension obligation, as measured by an actuarial now, which is what is different for the fire relief, would be recorded as a liability or an asset on the city's books next year.
Okay. Can I ask you to do me a favor, please? What you said makes perfect sense. Now say it again, but this time do it with the understanding that not everybody in the room is a CPA or has ever heard of this again.
Okay, so right now, the fire relief fills out Form SC for the Office of the State Auditor. It lists all of their members and calculates what their liability is based on the number of years in the department. What GASB 67, a new accounting standard, is requiring is an actuary, someone outside the fire relief, the city, wherever, outside of CPAs, to measure that liability in a different way. So they're going to calculate it using mortality tables, assumptions about vesting, assumptions about membership, and come up with what their estimated liability is, different from what the SC calculates it as. So for 2014, the Relief Association would be required to obtain that actuarial study and have a new measurement to get a clean opinion on their financial statements, so an unmodified opinion. GASB 68, again, which is the pair to 67, is for local government units that are associated with pensions. So because the Fire Relief Association is associated with the city of Cold Spring, that measurement, whether it becomes a net obligation or a net asset, would be included on the city's financial statements next year. And because it's a fire relief only for Cold Spring, the entire amount would be the city of Cold Springs. Unlike PERA, which would be a portion related to your city.
So, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so the one thing, you know, the GASB is the federal level. The state's requirements have not changed, and we've been using the state's requirements, well, since they've been required. So it's a federal issue. It's not a state issue. The state isn't asking for any more or any less at this point.
So is it something that we're required to do, or something that it's recommended we can do, or is it just a good idea?
With any generally accepted accounting standard, it is required in order to receive that unmodified opinion on your financial statements. So right now, on the fire relief special fund, the pension fund for the fire relief, we do issue an unmodified opinion. So basically, financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects, including the notes. If the actuarial study is not obtained, if they continue to just do the SE, that opinion would change and would be modified for a departure from generally accepted accounting principles.
So in other words, we have to do this. What would be the result potentially, and give me the plus and the minus, what potentially could the result be? If we have too much in there as compared to what they calculate, or if we have too little in there, what could the result be for the association as well as for the city?
For the association, it's not going to be a measurement of too much or too little. It's just going to be a measurement of a liability at a point in time. They're still going to have their assets and any liabilities, and then their net or equity position within the notes, the liability or asset calculated. But their front financial statements aren't going to change significantly either way. Note disclosures would not be able to be obtained appropriately without the actuarial study. So as far as the Fire Relief Association goes, pluses and minuses, pluses, they would still get an unmodified opinion. Minuses, they would not. But as far as the Office of the State Auditor goes, right now, there's no indication that anything would change. They're still going to require the calculation as it's done today. They're not going to accept the actuarial calculation. And they are, and at this point, at least indicating that there would be no change in funding.
Okay. Okay.
But we know how things change,
Yeah.
so. But right now, that's what we're looking at.
Okay. For the city,
For the city, you are not required to implement until next year.
correct?
So 2014, what the fire relief does will not affect you. It
Okay.
could affect you next year. And really what that means is unclear. We do know for cities that issue a financial statement that gets a certification, they would not be able to obtain that certification without that pension liability included, because your opinion would also be modified for a departure in gap. And as far as other things, you know, whoever else looks at your financial statements really at this point don't know how they're going to look at that, view that departure.
Okay. Any other questions? Jamie? Dave?
No.
Yeah?
No.
Brian? No. What else do we need to know?
So I guess what we also want to do is kind of let you know where, as the Relief Association, as the board members of the Relief, after having conversations with Chris and Nancy, sorry. Our opinion as a board, because the actuarial study, a rough estimate is somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 to have it done. You know, for 2000 as a board, for us, the importance of the modified or unmodified opinion, we don't feel that it's important for us as a Relief Association. We have determined that we're okay with a modified opinion and not a clean report. When in relation to the fact that the state's requirements aren't changing and what's been done in the past for the state is still going to be needed to be done, we feel that with the way our pension is set up and designed and the other things that we have in place, we're going to accept that moving forward, and we are not, for 2014, going to plan to have the actuarial study done, because if it's not going to affect our state aid, it's not going to change anything. We're not lessening the requirements that have been in place in the past. We don't feel it's prudent to spend the additional $3,500 to $4,000 needed to do the actuarial study. We don't see the value in it.
Would that cost be an annual cost?
Biannual.
Biannual, but there would be a smaller charge. So every other year would be that 35 to $4,000, and then off years there would be a smaller charge.
Yeah, and again, that we're not sure.
Right, I'm not sure what
that's
that
gonna look
off
like.
year would be.
It probably will depend on how busy actuaries are, how many pensions they're working with, and then we'll see.
We had a meeting and talked about it, myself and the same group sitting here. We talked about the fact that, like John said, they're proposing to not do the actuary for 2014, but I think you're proposing to do it for, well, you're willing to do it for 2015. I asked them because if they don't do one for 2015, the city will get a modified opinion. And my concern with that is that in 2015, we're going to the bond market for Red River Avenue. And none of us know what that impact will be, but, you know, for the amount of money that bond's probably going to be the biggest bond we've ever issued, even if it affects us 0.25%, that's a lot of money. And so my recommendation to the board and to you guys is that they do it for 2015, so that the city doesn't get an unmodified opinion. Sorry. The reason they're here tonight, I guess, is just we want to run this whole plan by you to see. I talked to Nancy and I said, I knew they were proposing to not get the actuary for 2014. And I'm asking them to do it for 2015. And Nancy and I agree that this is something maybe that the whole council should be aware of and approve. So,
Does this actuary cost vary depending on the size of the pension fund? And so that's how the cost is
We're
determined?
just looking at rough estimates right now without going and getting a price quote. We don't really know. That's just what we've been seeing.
Okay.
From other departments of our size. So it's not like we're just throwing it out there. It's what
Right.
other departments of our size have seen, but not specific to our
Right.
association.
Has there been a lot of flack given to the federal government about adding this additional expense?
No, not any more than with any other new standard. I mean, we've seen them. You've been, through this. We've seen a lot of GASB standards implemented, like OPEB. This is really similar to that. So no, not a lot. And I think when you look outside of the state of Minnesota, there are some pensions that are in some serious trouble, and there needs to be awareness at the local government level as to what that means for them. I think Minnesota's a little unique, and the funding is outlined very clearly in statute. When it gets to this point, we're going to raise our rates, and they continually monitor and keep track of that. But because it is a federal standard, we're not allowed to say, well, Minnesota doesn't have to do this. It's universal.
So if their decision to not do it for 14, which I at this point support, does that have any, the audit that you're doing right now for the city for 14, their decision will have no effect on that whatsoever.
Right, because you
Their
are not
decision
required.
for 15 will have a decision or an impact on our 15 statement.
Yes.
So what I would encourage us to do, us as a council, is to take this under advisement and please put it on the agenda for next meeting. We'll make a decision what we think we should do at next meeting.
Have you talked with Rusty regarding this matter, as far as the potential bond market?
Yeah, will it make a difference?
no, I didn't. I could run that by him.
If you would.
I would just like to bounce it off him because since we're dealing with him on the,
Yeah, it makes sense. Again, because we know that Red River's out there, and we know that that's going to be a big deal. That's why I want to do as much as we can. That's why, again, I'm hoping to get to talk to you on Thursday about some other things. Again, it's a big deal. So again, as much as we can do now to make it so we're in a better spot then, I think makes perfect sense. So,
Yeah, and the thing to be aware of that if the fire relief does wait until 2015, timing will be important so that we're not waiting at the city audit for the numbers from the actuary.
that it's done
So,
timely to
yeah,
have it ready
make sure
for.
that it's done early and.
Do you see any impact to the city if they don't do one for 14?
For 14, no. For 15, your measurement date then will have to stay that same year, because that can't change once you decide it's going to be the year before or the year of implementation for the city. That will stay the same. So the only impact is, like I said, making sure that it's timely every year so that the city is not waiting for the numbers to issue their financial statements, but, yeah. Other than that, no.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything more from you guys?
Do we need to make a motion as far as that the 14-1 will not be done?
Well, I was thinking,
do we need that, or?
Could we just do that next meeting? Just do all of it at one time?
Okay.
I think so. Thank you. Thank you.
So question on that, so
Oh,
next
wait.
meeting, you're just gonna discuss 14?
We're just gonna make a decision on whether or not, short answer, yes. We're gonna decide whether or not we're gonna encourage you to do 14.
All right.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think everybody's pretty sure on 14, it's the 15,
I
that's
think
the
everybody's pretty
question.
much, again, this idea of these unfunded mandates, I think we all are of like mind. It's just not fun. So,
Welcome to Human Services.
all right, yeah, thanks to Human Services. All right, the next item on our agenda is number 10. Number 10 has to do with something we have talked about before, but it's back. Here's the deal, Jamie, I'm going to give you more than I normally would, but because of the fact that this is likely one of the first times you've heard it, we're going to talk about it quite a bit. You know where Golden Plump is. You know that most of Golden Plump is not in the city. Or, I'm sorry, most of Golden Plump is in the city. One lot was not in the city. Golden Plump wants to do a development, do an addition to that piece of land. So they want city services to that. In order to get city services, it has to be in the city. So we said, okay, we'll annex you. They said, would you please? Or actually, they asked if we would. We said, yes, we will. We went to the township. The township says, fine with us, go for it. So we did all the paperwork, we sent it down to the state. Got down to the state, and some person at the state says, yeah, well, I don't like that. So we said, okay, well, then what is it you don't like? Well, the township is giving you a piece of land for free. You can't do that. We said, well, sure you can. There's nothing in the law that says you can't. They petitioned us, we said yes, and the township said go for it. Is it judge? Administrator?
Court, administrative law judge.
It's an administrative law judge, said, no, you gotta pay them something. So now we've been working on what is it we have to pay them. The Golden Plump would like to get this thing resolved. What we have been able to find out, according to Tom Jovanovich, what we have been able to determine is a couple of things. The first thing it says is that the former statute, do you have it in front of you too? The former statutes on reimbursement is quite clear. It provides that we don't have to pay them anything, but we can pay them, and then there's a couple of different formulas. And again, you should all have this in front of you. There's a couple of different ways that you can get paid. Here's the rubbing point. For 2015, the township would receive $436 on that piece of land. Okay, 2015, the total they would receive is $436. What they would like is a number somewhere between $1,679 and $4,314. They would like a number somewhere in between there. They, of course, are leaning on one side. We, of course, are leaning on the other side. We went back to the administrative law judge, and what we have been told is if we offer them one of the numbers, they will agree to it and sign off on the paper, and we can get going on this. So, while we owe them nothing, while according to statute, we don't have to pay them a penny, if we don't do anything, this could take us a long time to get resolved. So the question is, Council, what would you like to do?
Pay them something.
How much would you like to pay them? And I agree with the sentiment. What would you like to pay them? The lowest number that we have been told that we can get by with, which is the
1679.
Is that what it is?
1679 over 7 years.
1679 over 7 years.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking, Jen? Is that kind of what you're thinking? What was the 1,090 that I just saw?
1,090 is the default, under the old default
Oh,
statute.
that was the old law.
That was
And
the-
that's what we can't use anymore.
Well, it's not that we can't, but,
Well, but then we're back to the same place. that
Right.
The administrative law judge doesn't like it, and if they don't like it, they won't sign off on it.
correct.
So basically, it's somewhere between 1679 over 7 years, and the other one is 4314. By the way, I did talk to Tom a couple weeks ago when he wrote this memo, and he said, soon as we agree to it, soon as the law judge signs off on it, it's done. The annexation happens then, not in 7 years when we finish the payments. So it happens sooner than that.
So is the question to go with the lower amount or the higher amount, or any amount in between there, doesn't matter?
I don't know that it really matters. Again, we were told that the upper amount is what the township said they wanted. The lower amount is what we've been led to believe is the smallest number that we can use, and the administrative law judge will sign off on. Anything in between we could use as well. And we can actually, like Jen indicated, we could use a different number. But we run the risk that the administrative law judge says, yeah, I'm not feeling that one.
Now, according to this, that they're still waiting to set up a meeting with him to go over this.
At the last time I talked to Tom, again, what we were doing, if you remember, is Fran and Tom were going to meet with the township, and they were trying to set up all of that. But in the meantime, I've been bugging him and saying, this is taking forever. Can't we speed it up? And that's why Tom's been working with Chris and using the administrative law judge, saying, how do we get this process wrapped up? So Tom has been using the township's attorney instead of the township board. He's been using the township's attorney.
Can the township turn us down?
I would assume the answer to that is yes. They've already said they don't want anything
Yeah.
compensation-wise, but could they have changed their mind? Could they turn us down? Until it's final, it's not final. I would say yes, that's always a possibility.
Yeah, because the initial conversation was there was not going to be an exchange of, but the administrative law judge is the one that put the
Correct.
kibosh to that.
Correct.
No, we're gonna make payments for 7 years?
That's what we're allowed to do.
We're allowed to.
Correct. And again, just because we're allowed to, does that mean we have to? Doesn't mean that at all. But what it says we're allowed to do is the 1679, we can make that payment over a 7-year period of time.
That sounds like that's a proposal from the township, right?
The township's proposed,
That there was two different approaches, yes.
and according to what I got from Tom, the township's attorney wants the 4314. And if I were the township's attorney, I would say I want at least 4314. I'd probably want more than that, if you can get it. But, again, the law says we don't have to, but if you want to get this thing done sooner, and that's what Golden Plump is looking to us for, is get this done so that we can get city services, so that we can do our addition. That's what they're looking to us for. So how would you like to resolve this?
Part of this is a second question. He doesn't want just that. He wants also to know the areas that the city is considering annexation. That was part of the conversation that he wants.
But according to the administrative law judge, those are two separate issues, and we do not have to address the second one at this time. We will eventually Fran and Tom will meet with their people. Eventually, we're going to have to do that. But for right now, to get this annexation process completed, we don't have to address that.
I would do a lower amount.
Well, I'm for 1679
Yeah.
to start with.
Exactly,
Let's see
me
where
too.
it goes.
Okay?
They have that coming because,
I mean, and that's one of the
yeah.
proposed formulas.
And
I think-
1679 is not going to kill us. either.
No.
No,
Yeah.
it really won't.
No.
So did I hear a motion from someone?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we offered Wakefield Township 1679.
Payable over 7 years, as the statute allows?
We should just pay it at one time.
Want to pay it? Okay, so your motion's 1679, payable at one time.
Right.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Fran, thank you, and Dave, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none. Any abstentions? Looks like we passed. Okay, so you'll tell Tom that when he gets back? Ladies and gentlemen, can we stop just for a brief moment? I want to mark something. We have just had our first vote by Jamie. Let the record show.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's move on to item number 11. Item number 11, Ricori Trail appointment. The Ricori Trail Board, if you remember when we did the appointments back in January, in the past, the city of Cold Spring has to send 2 voting representatives to the Ricori Trail Construction Board. Richmond sends 2, Cold Spring sends 2, Rockville sends 2. In the past, it's always been the mayor and a council member. When we talked about it, there were only 4 of us, and we said, why don't we wait until there are 5 of us, and then when there are 5 of us, we can discuss how we want to proceed. Now there are 5 of us. How do we want to proceed? My recommendation is still, let's send Pete Weber, because a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about have to do with maintenance and earth moving and that kind of stuff. So I think Pete would be a good choice for one of those, and then either I will continue to serve on that role, or we can, strong arm Jamie to see if he would like to.
Have you talked to Pete about this?
I have talked to Pete about it several times, and Pete said that he would be willing, yes.
Okay. I would like to see you continue because of the history.
Okay.
And then I do agree that Pete would be a good fit because of the maintenance issues on it.
Is that a motion? Thank you, Jan. Second? Who's got a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Fran. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Pete and Bob. All right, number 12, update on the Ricori Trail. This is actually two small issues that have huge impact. The first one is this. If you remember years ago, do you remember the $30,000 was 5 years ago, 8 years ago? It was years ago.
It was 60,000 in 2010.
It was 60,000 in 2010. That was to build Phase 1. Phase 1 was from Richmond to basically Keese's Shell Station. Okay, that's where the thing turned. The Ricori Trail stops right now. So at that time, we put in 60,000. As we completed the process of building Phase 1, there was a surplus of funds, and so each of the 3 cities got back a number of dollars. It was right around $30,000. Okay, so we got some back. Then subsequent to that, we had to put 10 more back into the funds to keep the organization moving, paying legal bills, that kind of stuff. What I'm giving you now is a heads up. It looks like within the next month or 2, we're going to have to put in the additional 20 back into the fund because we're getting closer to getting started on Phase 2. Phase 2 is going to be from where it ends right now and taking it into Rockville. Okay? So that's the Phase 2. That's just a heads up. You don't need to do anything at this point other than know that we put in some, we got some back, and now we're basically going to be asked to put what we got back, put it back into the Ricori Trail again. Okay? Here's the other part of the process that I do need some help with. Actually, it's not really a lot of help, but between Cold Spring and Rockville, there's a railroad tracks. Everybody with me? What we've been trying to do is design the trail so that it would be a trail with the rails. Okay? That's the way it's been designed, is trails with rails. So what happened is our engineer for the trail, along with the chair of the board, went to meet with BNSF, Roger Schwinghammer from BNSF, and said, what is it going to take so we can get this going, so that we can get this designed, so that we can, get us a lease or get a whatever. And the conversation came around to, you know what? Why don't you just buy it from us? We'll pull the rails up and you just buy the whole thing. So instead of us giving you a lease on just a little part of it, you can buy the whole 100 feet right of way, all the way through. It'll make it a lot easier for you to build your trail. Well, that sounds really good, except We, the city of Cold Spring, because we have a couple of businesses that were very interested in retaining those rails, have always been saying, no, you can't do that. So the two biggest companies that have been saying, no, you can't do that, have been the formerly known as the Granite Company and Golden Plump. So with Dan's help, we have been contacting those two and saying, folks, please reconsider. Are you still interested in having the rails on the ground? And we have heard from, is it both of them now? We have heard from both of them now saying, no, we don't care anymore. We no longer have an interest. We don't care if the rails stay on the ground. So the question I'm asking the council is, do we, the city of Cold Spring, have any strong objections to allowing BNSF to pull up the rails and then sell the right-of-way to the Rocori Trail Construction Board?
Unless we have an industry that's someone that's contracted with the city.
I don't think they'll ever run a train into town anyway, personally.
And again, you bring up a valid point. One of the things that Roger Swinghammer reminded the people that were at the meeting is it Mill Creek, Mill Stream? In Rockville, there's Mill Stream? Okay, in Rockville, there's a Mill Stream. There's a bridge over that. The bridge is not safe for constant train traffic, so they estimate that in order for the rails to be used again, the bridge would have to be replaced. How many dollars? He threw out a number right around $250,000, $350,000. So it's a number. In addition, the tracks haven't been used for a long period of time. So in order for the tracks to be used, they would have to be upgraded. What will that cost? A number. So in order for anybody to use that track, it's going to cost a number, and the number is at least 6 digits, and it's probably a good-sized number. So your point of, I don't think anybody will ever use it, there's one more thing that goes with that. When they last went to the Washington, to the Groundland Rail Agency or something like that, it was declassified to now it's an industrial line. Because it's an industrial line, the maximum speed limit on that line is 5 miles an hour.
So it's down to 5 now.
Yeah.
It was at 15.
No, it's 5 now. Well, the story I got is it's 5.
That's very possible.
Okay, so first of all, it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to upgrade the rail, and then you can only go 5 miles an hour. How does anybody think they're going to make money under those circumstances? So I think, Dave, your point is, I don't think anybody's ever going to be using that for rail.
No.
So can I go back to the Rocori Trail Construction Board and say the city of Cold Spring has no objections?
If the industries that had expressed concern have said no, they no longer have it, I'm fine with that.
Anybody?
I'm okay with it too, yet is, I don't know how much it's gonna cost, that's
a whole nother
The
conversation.
Rocori Trail? Oh, that's a totally different conversation.
That's a different conversation,
Yeah.
okay. I guess I really don't care, but I just hope it doesn't cost the city too much.
Well, we're working on that too.
Okay.
Comments?
Nope.
Okay, then I'm going to go back to the Rocori Trail, and Dan, again, thank you for your help. I'm going to go back to the Rocori Trail and tell them that the city of Cold Spring no longer objects. All right, we're on item number 13. Item number 13. Give me 1 second, okay? I'm ready. Item number 13, there's a recommendation. Can I ask you to read the recommendation, please?
To ratify approval of an additional 8 weeks of FMLA leave for Paul Hetland.
This is the comment that I was told to read before we actually voted on that. Paul Hetland has applied for an additional 8 weeks of FMLA leave, and it has been granted. Paul Hetland is in contact with the city's attorney to work out matters regarding the employment relationship. I can say nothing more at this point. And that's in quotes. That's what I can say. So, the recommendation is that, and again, the leave has already been approved because my understanding is it's a federal law, and as long as he's compliant with all the conditions, we have to do it. So that's already been done. But the question is, what I was told is we still need to pass this recommendation ratifying the approval.
I'll make that motion.
Jan, thank you.
I'll second it.
Dave, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item 13 passes. You'll pass that on to Tom and Sue, please? Thank you. All right, then because that passes, we have to talk about item 13A, which is not directly on your agenda, but it has to be discussed. I have papers about that. What it has to do with is Chris has made a request. Chris has made a request that says, in essence, that if we approve his leave, if we approve his leave, she wants to get a pay raise. Okay, it's a long discussion, but I'll make it as short as I can. When we first approved Paul's FMLA leave, we had a discussion at the board, or at the council, and the discussion was, who will then be the supervisor? I proposed that we get either Chris Boucher or Paul Hessian to be the supervisor. Jan said, well, no. When we were going through the informal the committee, informal fact-finding committee, you reviewed the job descriptions and all that kind of stuff, and you said you don't need to. It's in her job description. She'll just do it. So we dropped it and left it at that, right? All right, so that's the premise that we've been going under all this time, and you have provided for us, and thank you for that. She did provide us, and I think everybody got a copy of it, the piece of the contract to which she's now referring to. And what the contract says, and I'm going to read it out loud as best I can, it says that if a department head is absent from work for more than 1 month, and any additional department employee is appointed to that position on an interim basis, that employee shall receive an increase of 1/2 of the difference in the current pay for the two positions. This increase in pay will take effect the first day after the 1-month absence and will not be retroactive to the first day of the absence. The interim employee will return to the regular pay rate upon the return of the absent department head. That's the piece of information that we were provided, and that's what Chris is relying on in making her request for the pay increase. Okay? So far, is everybody with me? All right, excellent. So what Chris has asked for in her last administrator's report. What Chris has asked for is, if the extension request is approved, then I am requesting that we follow city policy, and that's what I just read, regarding the pay for absences of department heads after 1 month, whereby I would receive an increase of half the difference in pay between our positions. This amount is to an increase of $5.25 for her position. Lois has been doing a lot of my work as finance director, and I would like to request the same for her, which would be an increase of $4.15. Although Angie hasn't technically taken on my duties, she has really stepped up in helping out more in our department and taken on extra projects to help with the workload. If there's anything we can do in the way of an increase for her pay, it would be well-deserved and appreciated. And then she goes on to say, thank you for your consideration. Since we are not currently paying anyone for the position of city administrator, there is money in the budget for this increase. So the request is that Chris, because she's acting as the department head, gets a pay increase of $5.25. Try that again, $5.25 per hour. Excuse me. Comments?
I have no problem with that.
Me neither.
Let's go with that.
Okay, so again, do I hear a motion with regards to that?
I'll make a motion.
Fran,
that
thank
we,
you.
I'll second.
Since Chris is an intern, to add that $5.25 to her.
Okay, and then Jan,
Yeah.
thank you for the second.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that portion passes. Then the second question, with regards to Lois getting a $4.15 increase to do a position that doesn't appear to be following the policy.
It's an out-of-class placement in my consideration. They're working as in an out-of-class position, so I think there should be some type of compensation for that.
I agree. How much?
This is just for Lois now?
This
That's
is,
what, that's,
yeah,
what- the request is just for Lois.
yeah.
Here's my concern. And again, I tried to get in touch with Tom, not knowing that he was on break, so I didn't get an answer. But my concern is, we don't want to run afoul of the Department of Labor or the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunities Commission, so we don't want to run afoul of anybody else. So I contacted him to ask the question is, can we even do this? The one is a no-brainer, okay? One's in our policy, one says that that's what we do. That one I have no issue with whatsoever. The other one is something that, again, I'm just going to be careful and make sure we're doing what we're supposed to, what we ought to be doing. And the idea of giving one something without the other, I have a real problem with. And the idea of giving both of them just an arbitrary number, again, I want to make sure that we're within guidelines, that we're not doing something rash.
I agree. I say that we get the direction from Tom as far as what we're able to do, but that both should be proposed to have an
Yeah.
increase because of the extra workload that they've taken on.
And then even if it goes into a couple more weeks, we can always retro
Yeah.
it too.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's March 7th? March
Yes.
7th, is it?
Yes.
Okay, so it would be retroactive to March 7th if we came up with something.
Yes.
So, but you guys are okay? We'll put it off until next meeting, and that next meeting, we'll talk about Lois and Angie.
Correct.
And how we can handle that based on what we get back from Tom.
If we can,
And the way I understand from the last meeting, Chris says everything is running smooth, got no issues, so that's already, so,
yeah. That's a big thank you.
yes.
Well,
to
thank
and
you.
the staff. I mean, really, thank you very much.
Thank all of you.
And again, you may not hear it often enough, but we do, seriously, we appreciate what you're doing for us, you as well. We appreciate very much what you do for us, and please, don't mean that you can stop. You have to do twice as much now, so thank you. All right, so everybody, you know where we are on 13, we approved one, but we didn't approve the other yet.
The question is, it's an 8-week term, right? And
At this point, it's 8 more
8
weeks,
weeks,
correct.
That's the full
Correct.
12.
Correct.
and at the end of 8 weeks, we have to decide once again, right? Yes or no?
FMLA will be over.
FMLA expires at the end of 12 weeks, but at the end of that period of time, and I'm trying to remember what Tom told me, at the end of that period of time, he has the right to make a request under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And what exactly does that mean? I don't know. But yeah, FMLA expires at 12 weeks,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on page 2. By the way, the agenda's only 4 pages tonight. We're on page 2. Number 14, accept plans and specs and authorize the advertisement for bids. Would you read, please?
Do you want to hear Brian
Brian, do we want to hear you
present
first?
first?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear Brian first. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, did everybody get a plan set in the packet? Yeah, sure. But I can closely find two right now.
Nope, I got it.
By heart. The plan set you have is called the 2015 Cold Spring Capital Improvements. It's a combination of the 14th Avenue South connection and the 2nd Avenue South improvements. If you recall from probably a year and a half back, we had bid the 14th Avenue project, or we had requested quotes because of the anticipated estimate of cost on it. The cost came back higher than anticipated. Some of the reasons for that, especially were the time of year. We had bid it, I think, towards the middle to end of summer. It was a tough time to bid it. So we rejected the bids, being they didn't come in where we had wanted, and said we were going to bid it again at a better time. The intention was to combine it with 2nd Avenue improvements, because we can take 2 small projects and at least build them up a little bigger, make them a little bigger project. So we fast forward a little and we say, all right, we're going to combine these. We do the improvement hearing for Second Avenue. So we've done all the processes with that because that is a project we anticipate assessing. Then we run into our issues with right-of-way and the railroad. And so we've just recently acquired that right-of-way from the railroad. So that's why we now have the combined plan set of 14th and 2nd. And looking to put it out to bid here very shortly. Actually, if we receive approval tonight, we'll get it to the record here on Thursday, so it can be published on Tuesday. I think we were looking at, if I recall, an April 9th bid date. So we have a little longer bid, the bidding period has to comply with the 429 process for assessments.
Brian, Paul Hessian, and is there anything else city has to be done in a small fashion or something that we could do this year yet? I call it a cleanup.
Wrap it up in there?
Yeah. Has Paul, and I know he isn't here, he can't represent himself, but is there something else in the city that needs addressing that?
I guess I haven't heard any from him. I know we've been talking about these plans, and I think we're really trying to gear up a lot for the Red River project in 2016 to gear up for the well construction. So I don't think there's a whole lot else on the plate. I know one of the ones we've talked about is our Fifth Avenue and 2nd Street North are pretty bad, but being that the project is coming through and that's the potential for more cars, the potential for a detour, we don't want to rebuild it now and then have to.
What is yours and Paul's plan with that Fifth Avenue bridge that the tops is all laying in the creek? That can just be a regular project, that doesn't have to be.
Are you saying the granite pieces?
Yeah, I think the tops, the ledge is all laying, it's all laying down in the trout stream, so.
Yeah, I think that could probably be a regular project. It's something we could probably work.
Okay, that's not extensive enough to put it on this year.
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
And we're going to pay for this, not through any bonding or nothing, correct?
I guess I'd have to defer to Chris, but the intent was that 2nd Avenue would be assessed to the property owners.
Okay.
And then 14th Avenue was going to be picked up as a straight city cost.
All right.
So I don't know if we were bonding for it or.
No.
Well, I was just wondering to keep that clean for Red River, because we're gonna need all the support or the help there
Right.
for that, so.
And these are both pretty small projects, and my plan was to pay for them out of that future capital improvement fund, and that's the fund that you often see before you when we close out other funds and the money goes into them. So this is the kind of thing, it's perfect what it's for. It's a pretty big project, but it's for these projects that are too small to really bond for.
And then that should attract the contractors too then, right?
Mhm.
Because they'll get paid after it's done, so.
Well, then.
I mean, without
Yeah.
without you checking it
We do
over.
pay our bills, yeah.
Yep. And that's why, we want to go out this time of year. It's the prime time to go out and get some contractors on it, get them interested. One of the other things, because that 2nd Avenue is important crossing, we had numerous discussions about putting in a temporary crossing. I talked with Pete and the Public Works Department had talked about this internally, and they had decided that at this point, they don't feel it's worth putting in the temporary crossing, because we are very close to bidding the project, and we'll be very, as soon as, really, my guess is once road restrictions are off and we have a contractor, they could probably start working. So it was in their opinion, it wasn't worth spending the money to bring in the gravel, the crew time, all of those things in order to.
So we were actually going to do the curbing and all that,
We were planning for the temporary.
south of the trail there on 2.
Yeah, for the temporary, we were just gonna basically bring in some gravel.
Yeah.
They had Public Works had already gone in and removed some of the bollards
Yeah.
in preparation of that. We actually, Public Works purchased the signs for Second Avenue, all the signage.
Yep.
And that's not gone to waste. In the plan, it'll be that the city will supply the signage, and then it's up to the contractor to supply the posts and install them. So we had done some of those things in preparation for it, but because of the process with the railroad and how it got drawn out, their opinion was at this time not install the temporary crossing.
Okay.
Well, let's bid it, right?
That's right.
Any other questions for Brian? All right, hearing none, let's go back to where we were before. The recommendation, agenda point number 14.
Can I read it? Okay.
Now, if you would, please.
Recommendation to adopt Resolution 2015-03, a resolution approving plans and specifications and ordering advertisement for bids for the 2015 Cold Spring Capital Improvements Project.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Fran.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dave. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstentions? Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it just passed. We're going to have a road after all. I can give you an update. I was told today that the deed, the quitclaim deed that we're getting from, is it BNSF or the short line, or, I was told today that the deed has been sent to the county. So, we're that close. I mean, we're gonna actually have a road. Thank you, thank you. Number 15, city engineers report. Brian.
Well, and I just wanted to thank you for your patience through the process. It's been a little bit of a frustrating process dealing with the railroad and obtaining our right-of-way back, but we're getting close. Thank you for your patience as well.
And good luck to the trail board when they start dealing with them.
City engineers report. You know all about Second Avenue. We can breeze over that. And so, Facade 2 Red River, I mentioned a little bit earlier that there were televising crews in town. I think they have a little bit more televising to do. We had gotten back those property owners that wanted to televise their private service. We've gotten that information back. So they'll be televising the services within the right-of-way as well as those select private services.
Is there a lot of them that did that?
I honestly don't know the number.
You don't know?
I know that I think they had a pretty decent response. It's definitely a good price that the city gives. And part of that being we realize that these projects are a burden. So we want to give people every opportunity to know what they have in the ground. Other than that, I think by next Friday or in the next week, we should be getting a report back on the sewer conditions. And from that point, I'll be working with Public Works and we'll kind of start figuring out ages and conditions and to what extent utilities will be, or that will suggest utilities are replaced with the project.
Does the county have any direct input into like the utility piece of it or the streetscape piece of it? No.
No, they don't care. The county is in
Curb to curb.
that core area between Highway 23 and the 50-2 intersection is saying we're replacing, we pay for curb to curb, back of curb to back of curb. Beyond that, city is your responsibility. They're going to work with, we're going to work with the city on it. I just talked with with the county. I just spoke with their designer today, kind of talking about how we do the sidewalk grades, how we work with the buildings, making sure we hit the ADA requirements. So it's something we're going to be in close contact with the county on. Otherwise, utilities, they don't really care.
As long as you don't mess up their schedule.
Yeah, and they also, I think we had talked before, storm sewer is something that is a cost split between the county and the city. Because the county contributes water to the storm sewer from their road, and then the city usually contributes water from outside of their road to that system.
But otherwise, any changes to Red River, they're set in their ways, the way I understand, right?
Yeah, the way that was approved.
That last approved is.
Yeah.
I mean, even if something else would come up or the monies would be there or something, but something else would jeopardize it, but they're still set in that, in that.
That's my understanding, yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? That's all you have? You're certain? Any questions for Brian? Any compliments for Brian? Any insults? All right, thank you, Brian. We're moving on to number 16. List of bills and additions. Review and accept the payments of the accounts payable according to the list and supplemental list presented by the city staff.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jen. And a second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Fran. Motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstentions? Thank you very much. We're on number 17, general questions and comments from the city council. Jamie, you're first.
I have none.
Dave?
Nothing.
Jen?
March 21st, Community Showcase
Oh, tell me about that.
at the high school, and the city will have a booth there, and we are looking for volunteers, council members, planning, EDA, to staff the booth up there.
I did.
So,
I signed up, right, Dan?
good for you, Fran.
Okay, what else, what other kinds of exciting things? Why should I, as a concerned citizen, want to go to the Cold Spring Showcase on March 21st?
It's a great way to be exposed to the organizations and businesses, nonprofits in the area that will all be plying their wares and sharing their experiences with you.
Excellent. That sounds like fun.
It does, absolutely.
You're all going to be there, right?
Events for children?
Events for children?
Yes, keep them
Wow.
occupied, yes.
Even better. Thank you. Fran, what do you got?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No, I'm tired.
Huh. Chris, what have you got?
I have just one thing. If you guys could all remember to bring your fire department reports back to the next meeting. Dan will be here to give his report on it.
Okay.
He's at the township this evening?
Yes.
Oh, fun.
Chris, is there anything you wanted to add with regards to the showcase?
Nope, Jan did a great job, so.
Okay. What is it? The showcase is when?
March 21st.
Thank you.
9 to 2, with Cory.
Okay, excellent. All right. Any other questions, concerns? Perfect. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go to item number 18, which is adjournment. Do we hear a motion?
You got one here, motion.
Okay, do we hear a second?
Hold on. Oh, what?
You didn't give much call for comment.
Okay,
Public comment.
We do that in the beginning.
we do in the beginning, but I also,
It's in the agenda for now, too.
Yeah,
Fran.
comments from
correct,
council
but
and
I- but
public.
I thought I said it and I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything. And again, maybe I blew past it too quickly, and if I did, I apologize.
I take
But-
it back, the
You take it
motion.
back? Okay, thank you. I was gonna say, but I got a motion here now. Okay, Chuck, would you like to say anything? No. Okay.
I would like to just say that on this Red River Avenue project, that, as I stated at the city council meeting earlier, the first time it was brought up that I agree something needs to be done with that street, but I think the extra expenses that are gonna be applied to whomever's gonna have to pay them need to be seriously considered, as you've all said already. And I would like to ask you to make sure that those are seriously considered, because it would be unfair to not have them seriously considered and pass that cost along to the taxpayers or the property owners or whomever is going to have to pay that bill to plant trees and shrubs and put all that granite in our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Now I'd like to have that motion, please.
We'll make that motion.
Fran, thanks for the motion. Second?
I'll second.
Jan, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. It was a good meeting. Let's call it adjourned.